The state of the game today revealed a little bit of information for the 1.6 patch. Because I myself had access to the ETF forums, I already knew some of the things that they mentioned. But it's a good thing to finally be able to talk about what's coming openly without Ubisoft standing behind me ready with the belt of justice. The topic that they started with on the stream was the increased size of the Dark Zone, a whole chunk of the Dark Zone that they're adding. They didn't show much footage of it, this is the only thing that I have, Hamish didn't want to give away too much. But they mentioned that besides a DZ01 and a DZ06, we will also be getting a DZ07, DZ08 and DZ09, which can be seen right here. They will be added north of the current Dark Zone, right next to Central Park. And although these zones, they may look a little bit smaller on paper, they're actually expanding the Dark Zone by 100% if you're just looking at playable space. At least, that's what they're claiming. You see, what they did in the new Dark Zone areas is add a lot more verticality to the playable environment. The one thing that was lacking from the Dark Zone as it currently is access to rooftops, access to buildings and all those things. But the developers mentioned that players will now have a lot more buildings to enter. They can go through a lot more subways, they can go on top of a lot more rooftops, and it will mostly just result in the player having a lot more diverse combat engagements. The one thing that they also mentioned is that this should make the DZ a little bit more PvE friendly. As the playable space, that will increase, but the player count per server, it will still be limited to 24. This means that if not everybody is running around in DZ09, the chance of you actually meeting another player, that will be a lot smaller. They've acknowledged that this might hurt some of the PvP experience, but the thing that is also coming in 1.6 is Last Stand, which is actually a dedicated PvP mode within the Dark Zone. Basically, this Last Stand, it lets you queue up for a game where you will be put in an 8-man team up against another 8-man team, and you will face each other off in different parts of the Dark Zone. The game mode is, in my opinion, very similar to a territory style of game mode, but I can also see a lot of things taken from the MOBA genre. The way that it works is that there will be 3 locations on the map. You have A, you have B, and you have C. And players have to capture these to earn points. To capture one location, however, you will need to activate 1 out of 3 nodes. So to make it simple, there are 9 nodes on the map. 3 for point A, 3 for point B, and then also 3 for point C. But what makes it special and what makes it stand out is that there's also something in the game called Shade Tech, which is your team's currency, so to speak. And Shade Tech can be used to upgrade certain parts of the map. For example, you can add fortifications, such as seen in this trailer where the player puts out this turret around the pit to block off that area for players on the other team. The way that you get that Shade Tech, and this is kinda where they hope to get those PvE players to try out this game mode, is to kill NPCs that roam around the map, very similar to how you kill minions in MOBA games. Just like in a normal DZ, there will be mobs pretty much everywhere, and killing them will grant you and your team with that Shade Tech. So it's very possible to have that one guy in your team fully optimized for PvE that just goes out and ranks up those NPC kills for your team, and then proceeds to fortificate those areas, giving your team a very big advantage that way. A thing that Massive wants to try out with Last Stand is gear normalization, just so that gear doesn't play the biggest role when it comes down to what team is winning. I personally think the unnormalized version of PvP is a lot more interesting because you can try out the builds that you've been working towards for the past few weeks, and you can work together with your squad to try and create the most powerful 4-man combinations possible. But I can definitely also see the appeal of normalized PvP for the players that cannot be bothered to min-max their characters, but still want to participate in PvP. And for those players, I think Last Stand will be the best thing that has been added to the division yet. One last thing that Hamish also mentioned is that in patch 1.6 there will also be some changes for survival. For instance, that you will not be able to get matched with a group anymore if you queue in solo. They want to make the solo survival experience a little bit better. And on top of that, players that are grouped will now also be required to use a medkit on players when they are in the down state. So going down even when you're in a group will now be a lot more punishing. This is a good thing. This is something that I suggested all the way back on the PTS for patch 1.5, and I'm glad that they finally made the change. Oh, and one more thing, before I forget, patch 1.6 will also come with a new incursion, which is probably that new mission that keeps popping up on the map when you're doing HVTs, but they haven't been giving much details about that yet. They've said that more info will be dropping in the upcoming days, but I guess for now, that's all that they had to share, so that's all that I'm gonna share with you. As always, I will see you guys later, or like they say in the Netherlands, zie je later.